Welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show. I'm Marcus Blake, and today we are joined by Oscar Torre and Chuti Tiu for their film, A Hot Summer Night. And I'm going to just start off by saying that this was kind of a genius film, blending in Zoom and, people trying to cope with the pandemic through, sex work and stuff like that. It was so interesting how it was kind of shot, and I was just incredibly fascinated by it. So I think it's a little bit of irony that we're doing a Zoom interview when that's the film.
It's
So
very meta,
I
right?
just want to highlight that he said genius.
Yeah.
We're married, so
No,
I'll
okay.
need a reminder of that.
Refer to him as
When we have an argument and we disagree, I'm just going to
That
point out.
Nerd Show has its ruling now.
Yeah.
Genius.
So
oh boy,
I don't expect you to understand this, honey.
because this
Fair
is
enough. Fair enough. All right. So I want to, we're going to get to both of you, but I want to dive in. What is the actual inspiration of this film?
Okay, it started like you said. We shot it during the pandemic, and we were going nuts. We're home like everybody else and going nuts. Luckily, we had each other to drive each other crazy.
and we did, yes.
But not everybody had that luxury. And so I was communicating with friends, checking in on them through social media mostly.
Right.
And I kept hearing the same story of people who were by themselves. It was lonely. They were looking to connect. They were like, I
Right.
haven't seen somebody. I have a friend, had a friend who said, I haven't seen somebody in months. They drop off my food at the door, and by the time I open the door, they're gone. And I'm like, I want to capture this moment in time without knowing how it's going to end.
Right.
So and we're looking to be creative, but then at the same time, I knew that it couldn't be boring. And
Right.
this could be boring. I mean, that's the challenge of doing a film of one person by themselves in isolation. That it can be
Sure.
boring, which is the stuff that I had seen, not about COVID, but what I had seen would tend to be boring. That type of film, interesting, but at some point you want to fast forward. So then the OnlyFans situation started happening at the same time, and I'm like, that's interesting,
Yeah.
That's interesting how genius in a way that instead of, clubs are closed. So
Right.
now they bring the club to the client.
Yeah.
Like that's interesting. So I started doing research on that. And I had a friend who had met a girl in AA who was a dancer, and they started dating at the time during COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's a film in itself. And obviously this film has nothing to do with that, but that gave me the premise of like, okay, that's not boring. Regardless how you feel about dancers and sex workers, but it's a good vehicle to tell this story of connecting and
Well,
relation.
yeah, sex always sells. But I think there's a human side to that story of, how did you get into it? What is the line that you're not willing to cross and stuff like that. And I don't think we talk about the sex workers, whether they're strippers or they're prostitutes or anything, and how they coped with, the pandemic. And on the OnlyFans, you're right, just really took off. So that's what I thought was really genius about this is how do you do that? And especially when you're struggling and you're having to help your parents and all that, what are you like willing to do, if you go out there? But at the same time, you do kind of become a therapist in a way, an unlicensed therapist where they can, yeah.
And that's something that just to jump in, we encountered so often when interviewing people, communicating with people who do this line of work,
Yeah.
that oftentimes it really is about therapy, being seen, being heard, not necessarily all about the entertainment or about the sex. We talked with women who basically said, yeah, sometimes I never even have to take off my clothes because they just want someone to talk to, and we found that so interesting because that was such a dire need through
Yeah. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense how people connect. I mean, gamers have online multiplayer games. When you're lonely, you don't really have, or you've moved to a new town and everything, and you're just looking to talk with someone, and you don't know how to reach out, or you haven't had a date, and it's just there's so much that goes into it that's a little bit more human and sometimes sad, but also that you can connect to someone different than paying for therapy.
Absolutely.
So, so Chuti, I gotta ask you. Now I didn't look up your IMDb, so I'm not familiar with all of your work. But now I'm very curious about working with Sean, so I will look that up.
I looked it up. It's called The Strip.
The Strip. Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
How funny.
I know. Now I've got to check that out. All right.
I played a bounty hunter on that.
Okay. Well, that's got to be fun right there.
It was. It was so much fun.
Um, how do you prepare as an actress for something like this? I mean, did you know much about this world? Did you? Okay, so it was kind of brand new. All right.
Super brand new. So of course there's the intellectual side of researching what is the world like, and also what does my character encounter on a day-to-day basis? What is her backstory and that kind of thing.
Right.
But all up here, it's really important to also get to the heart of it. I can't just think,
Yeah.
oh, I am now a sex worker, I am now a stripper. So it literally takes the muscle of imagination. We talk about this all the time. Like you inhabit the world. I don't go, what would it be like? No, I just go, okay, I've chosen this line of work. Why would I have done that? And I sit with that. And I come with that because sometimes the script doesn't have the full backstory. So what Oscar provided me with was an awesome script, but I got to fill in the parts of the backstory that maybe weren't
Right.
very explicit, right? And so that was a lot of fun because it's a totally different world than from what I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Well, did you get tips about how to do a bedroom, how to really do this, and
Well, and it's interesting. Some tips that either a lot of YouTube, a lot of reaching out on social media, because as you recall it, it's not like I was getting together physically with a lot of of examples. But yes, definitely getting tips. And there used to be, just as an example, unfortunately, she's discontinued it, but there was this wonderful podcast called Hustle Like a Stripper. And
wow.
it was a stripper who loved what she did, and she ran her business, her stripping business, like an actual entrepreneurial business. And
Right.
she, and it was brilliant. And that entrepreneurial, almost aggressive spirit, I definitely took that in. I listened to every single one of her episodes.
Um, so yeah, brilliant. It kind of reminded me. Sorry, I used to be in the army and a drill sergeant. The first time the guys go out on pass and they know they're about to go waste money at a strip joint, he gave a great recommendation that what you should do is when you've rented your hotel room, like rent stripper porn, throw dollar bills at the TV, and then when you're done, you get it back. And then you don't have to lie to your wife why you don't have so much money in your bank account.
It's great.
Yeah, best advice ever from a drill sergeant. Saved a lot of marriages.
I
But I kept thinking about that as people have gone to, more video only fans and giving that content, and it's not the same as going into a club. Now, I haven't been in a strip club in almost 20 years, personally, but I can see how it folds over to video and doing what you're doing. Um, Getting back to the background story, whose idea was it that she was an addict?
Mine.
Okay,
Mine.
because that adds a lot more layers to the character.
I had worked as a therapist, alcohol and drug counselor for 6 years before being an actor. When I first started acting, that was also my survival job. And I've always wanted to tell the story about addiction. Um, so this was the perfect vehicle because I needed her to personally be overcoming something.
Right,
Writing the story, I need her to be overcoming something. And that's when I thought of like, okay, this is something that I know about.
right.
Not more than I know about the world of a sex worker. I know this.
Yeah,
Uh, so that's where that came about, and that was that ticking time bomb.
yeah,
from knowing about addiction, I knew, and luckily, thank God, I'm never had an issue with alcohol and drugs, but I knew plenty. I knew the challenges that this brought, especially in isolation. You
Yeah.
don't have everything you're taught. You teach people when they're trying to stay sober about connecting and stuff. Isolation was like the perfect time to become an addict. So I'm like, she's got this, and she's dealing with all these problems from people at the same time, and she's got to put this face of
Yeah.
like, okay, and I'm doing great, and I'm sexy, and I'm here to, to help you with your issues, like a therapist.
Yeah.
That's why that theme kept coming up. So that's where the idea of the addiction came from.
One of my first bartending jobs in college, I used to close the bar down at a Sunday night, and ladies from the Arlington, Texas Gentlemen's Club would come in, and then I would go party with them all night. And I was what, 21 or 22, very young. And I never met one that didn't do some kind of hardcore drugs or had something that would keep them going. And, most of them were single moms. They were struggling. This is the only work they could find, but that stuff was always around, so dealing with sobriety and this, I'm like, that kind of spoke to me as a story. Like, how do you really deal with it with all this stuff coming out? Because that's like the ultimate test for your sobriety.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So we're always taught in screenwriting classes and even as an actor, just as filmmakers, that you always want to up the stakes. So
Yeah.
that's what we found in this story. It's like one thing after another, after another. Someone lets you down, and there's the substance abuse and et cetera, et cetera. So
Right.
yeah, that's what we were going for.
So the characters, everybody that did Zoom, are these actor friends of yours that you kind of roped in during the pandemic to give them something to do? Kind of like Maker's busy work?
Some of them, some were not actors. Um,
Really?
it's I think it's a mixed cast of actors and non-actors, and that was the challenge. That was a challenge and challenge for her because I needed them to. The actors were pretty scripted. The non-actors were loosely scripted, but I knew I couldn't hold them to say word by word of what was written. So I wanted them to tell. I still wanted them to tell like an actor. An actor knows how to grab a script and
Sure.
personalize it. Make it your own. You're gonna say the lines, but now you're talking about your own pain.
Yeah.
And not actor, you can't ask him to do that. So I wanted them to bring up. I mean, and I wrote it stuff that I knew they could relate to based on our conversation stuff during the pandemic of isolation and stuff. So it was her job, which is what was incredible that she did. It was her job to be able to get them to say what I needed them to say to be able to tell the story so it wouldn't be boring or repetitive.
Yeah.
And, and once they were able to say that, once they said the key words to tell the story that I wanted to tell, sometimes I would ask them to repeat that
Yeah.
or say it in a different way.
Well,
They were great. They were great.
even your character, was a little awkward at times, but I thought was also very honest about someone who was curious. How does one get into it? That kind of thing. But the husband whose wife died, placing that one at the end when you've gone through everything, and then you encounter him who's just lonely, who's looking for an okay. That one.
A compass.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have to ask, was that on purpose that he would be the last, or did you kind of play around where he would be in the script?
We found that in post.
Yeah.
She
Oh,
and I, and I won't take complete credit for this. We looked at every scene, and then and Ernesto Sandoval, the editor,
mhm.
who was incredible. But she and I would look at every scene, and then we started moving scenes around. Okay, this one will work better here. This one will work
Yeah.
better there. I think this is a moment that this scene is a little lighter. Let's put it here. And they say that you write the story, you shoot the story, and then you find the movie in post.
Right.
Um,
Oh,
and that is true. That is true. And that's a scene that we had a little bit earlier.
yeah. Okay.
A little bit earlier, and we pushed it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think of all the great movies that have been saved in post by a good editor. Star Wars, for one,
Right.
Jaws,
Yes, yes.
So I was just curious because I felt the timing of him kind of being the ultimate climax of dealing with all of these characters and someone who's not there for the sex part, just there looking for an okay, who is extremely lonely, and that's where they could find solace. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful role play, but it's also like the saddest role play, at the same time.
I have to 1,000,000%
Yeah.
agree. Absolutely.
So this story, I feel like it's not a complete story. I feel like it's like the beginning of something. Like you've introduced a character that we will come back and visit. Is this, and to be honest, I looked at this as this feels like a pilot to a series, a way
Yeah.
of introducing this character, what she does, sobriety. But what would this, because I want to know about her after the pandemic. I want to know, does she go back to the club? Does she continue to do it? Is it OnlyFans? Is it what does this person do?
Will she relapse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got that. Yeah, and I got that part. But I mean, there's like so much more beyond that, getting past the pandemic and, doing this. That's what I'm saying. It feels more like a pilot to something bigger. So that's my question. Is this, do you feel like this is a completed story or that you can explore more with her character?
You know what? I love what you're saying, and we could definitely explore more. We can show a prequel of what her life was right before this happened.
That would be amazing too.
It's
Yeah.
a lot more fun um, to watch. Um, but I like that you said that because one of the things that I was going for, I wanted this to be a piece of life, a moment,
Right.
hours of her life that you're getting to witness, almost like voyeur of her life. And the best compliment was somebody who walked in late at the Barcelona at a film festival, and she thought it was a documentary.
It kind of feels that way at times.
And
Uh,
that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted the audience to stay with, okay, it's almost like you just witnessed or lived something that you were part of, but we don't know how it's going to end. We didn't know how the pandemic was going to end when we were shooting
yeah.
it. And I wanted that as well. Even though, if you notice, we never mentioned COVID. I think
Yeah.
somebody mentioned it once because the movie wasn't about COVID per se. It was about isolation that people live and
Yeah.
they still live and they've
Well,
always, and
the biggest tip off is the guy with the conspiracy theories, because you got to have one of those. I, I kept making jokes during the pandemic that I swear to God, we are living in the X-Files. Like every time they talk about disease and government control, I'm like, oh my God, are you literally quoting the X-Files here?
Exactly.
exactly.
Yes.
Not, it's fictional.
I'm glad that you caught that. And her challenge was, and what we kept always talking about, and my job as a director, luckily she's an amazing actor,
No, thank
or
you.
else this movie
I
wouldn't
paid
work.
him to say that.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And the one note I always kept giving to her was like, remember the money. You gotta get that. You gotta hear the thing. You gotta get money out of them
Yeah.
because this is how you reach your goal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, do not fight them on anything. As crazy as whatever the client is saying, do not object to it. Do not.
Right. You can be empathetic, but you got to be that hustler too.
Yeah.
Right?
Work and get that
Yeah.
tips
Don't
and
forget who
stuff
you
like
are. Yeah.
The
that.
customer is always right, so keep on saying yes and.
Yeah.
Take the conversation to where you want to go, which at times you saw her go, hey, but would you like to?
What
I
would you
know. So, Trudy, I have no doubt this was a very interesting experience for you as an actress diving into this world. Um, for future roles, do you feel more comfortable diving into this kind of world again?
Without a doubt. I think it's investigating any world, it
Yeah.
becomes in a way a part of you. It's like a neighborhood or a city that you spend time in and you know your favorite coffee shop and where you like to get your laundry done or whatever. And it feels it feels actually like a different home, but in a
Right.
different dimension. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I learned to love Summer and everything that she was dealing with.
Yeah.
S- Yeah, I would love to investigate further either this story, prequel or sequel, or another one with these similar kinds of challenges because it's so rich. I believe every story literally is universal. I mean,
Yeah.
if you take away, whatever, gender, background, occupation, all that kind of stuff, we all have these pains and triumphs and everything. And it's just such, it's actually a privilege to get to go for this ride. Like,
Yeah.
what does it feel like to be this person?
So I'm going to add another genius compliment because as a filmmaker, I'm a huge fan of the last shot, which I feel like defines movies. John Wayne and the Searchers is my favorite John Wayne movie, and I just love the shot where, he delivers Natalie Wood's character, he finally rescues her, and he doesn't cross the threshold of the house because he's still a very broken man, and the camera just fades back as he turns away. He knows that he can't go into something wholesome, but he did his job, and it just fades back to a broken man turning around and going off. Um, the last shot of this, which I thought was incredibly emotional, is her finding her peace after everything and just the tear. You don't need to say anything. It's just the tear coming down her eyes, her eye, you know, and that is it. And then you can fade to black because it's that character coming full circle or everything that she had to deal with to hustle to get money and stuff like that, but finding her inner peace. So was that accidental or was it planned?
No, that was planned. I knew what I wanted. I knew at the beginning of the film, there were only a few things that I really knew going in, and some things you find. I start any film that I'm directing or writing with a question that I don't know the answer. Um, but knowing what I knew of recovery and addiction, I was a therapist
Yeah.
in the past. Never been had issues with addiction myself, but I knew a lot of it.
Yeah.
I knew that tomorrow she would have to start all over again.
Yeah.
And everything that she overcame today, she has to do it tomorrow all over again, 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. And I think that's where the real courage is for anybody who gets up in the morning,
Yeah.
and got to the day and the things that we have to overcome, and the world is always throwing
Yeah.
things like this at
Hey,
you.
we all love Bill Murray and Groundhog Day where it's fun, but let's get to the real character who has to start over and do the same thing, and that's more honest.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what that ending
All
came.
right. All right. So I'm going to work in two quick questions. Our nerdy question and one since I got a little bit more time. So here's the first one. As filmmakers, what's the movie that lit your fuse that made you want to be a writer, director, actress that just made you want to be a filmmaker? What's that one movie?
The one movie. Okay. Well, on so many levels, the one I have to mention, and it might seem like the one that everyone mentions, but Casablanca.
Okay. Cannot go wrong with that.
Story, the shots, the direction, of course, the
Yeah.
acting, but the every character's journey.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And difficult choices and unrequited love, plans that get crushed, etc. I love it all. I kind of feel like it's a slice of everyone's life. And I thought, okay, that I want to tell stories like that.
I once cooked dinner for a woman and showed her that movie. And when she didn't like it, I was like, thank you for letting me know we're not going to work out.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
funny.
Now we know. Bye-bye.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Oscar?
Me, it was Rocky.
Oh,
It was Rocky. As an actor, when I was first starting out, I was really inspired by that. And then as a filmmaker, I really got to appreciate the writing in the film and
yeah.
how simple it is and how deep it is at the same time. And it's how universal it was and brilliant. And then as I got older, because I first watched it as a kid, and I
Yeah.
didn't watch it when it first came out. I watched it later on, but I was in love with his character. And then later on, I realized when I was a little older, I realized this is a love story.
Yeah.
It's not about boxing.
Yeah.
Love story. And I still watch it. I'm like, that first film. I think it's an almost perfect film.
I absolutely agree. And my favorite aspect of it, though, beyond all the boxing, the very first one is it's not about him going the distance for himself. It's also about him proving that he's good enough for her by going the distance. And I don't know how many people actually pick up on that. And you don't really pick up on it until, it's the night before. He knows he can't win. He knows they don't care, but he's going to go the distance. It's about him being confident in himself to be worthy of her love more than anything else. And then you kind of see it at the end, when they hug in the ring. So, wow, I've never had anybody actually say Rocky before on that question. Really?
And the moment, and also when he's in the ring, he goes in the ring, like you said, expecting to lose.
Yeah.
But at some point during the fight, after he gets knocked down, he gets back up.
Yeah.
And he starts seeing the challenger as a man as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, one last question. So it's our famous nerdy question that we ask all of our filmmakers. If you could have a superpower to fight the forces of evil, what would you choose? I love asking this because nobody expects it and they're not prepared. They've never thought about it.
I feel like Miss America, the Miss America pageant. I'm about to say a really dumb answer or something.
Superpower. Wow. And it's so funny because it's one of those things where I'm convinced that I'll say one thing and I'm like, oh, dang it, I forgot I could have had that power. It's like, what are the superpowers that I can think of right? You know what? Yeah, I know what it would be. I just thought of it because I tapped on my head. I don't know if this is a superpower
I hope you don't say what I'm thinking.
to change someone's mind, to be like, get into their brain and be like, no, you will like this. Kind of
That's incredible.
stuff.
I wasn't going to say that, but no, but
It's like,
I had thought of something else. But that's
you like the dress I'm wearing. Yes,
Yeah,
you do.
that's a superpower. Basically, you're Charles Xavier from the X-Men. You can kind of manipulate people's thoughts and direct them. Yeah.
I'm Charles Xavier. I love it. Yep.
heal. To be
Do
able to healing.
Nice. All right.
Because I have an issue, and she knows that I have an issue with death. I every time I see somebody, especially that I care or somebody who I admire, I'm like, oh, that's so, and it hurts me. So I'm like, wow, you had the power.
Well, apparently that's a force power, as they explained to us in The Rise of Skywalker. Apparently you can heal death through the force. So we didn't know